got to be more to Coldplay than meets the eye. In a few short years, they have gone from a college band in London to international superstars. Their music has found appeal with a huge audience all around the world. Their albums sell in the millions, and they continue to break new ground in their music. All this from a group of guys who are barely in their 20s.
It's flattering, you know. We also got a lot of bad things said about us, but at the end of the day, we're just a band, you know, and we're not as important as other things in the world, you know, so we don't really care about what people say. It's great when they like us, but, you know, if we got worried every time someone wrote something bad about us, it'd be pointless because, you know, music is one of life's pleasures and there's much more important things to worry about.
I think what makes Coldplay a good band is firstly the high standards that they set themselves. They're unwilling to release anything that they wouldn't buy themselves, and so they're not going to succumb to pressure from record companies just to put something out for the sake of it. There's the appeal of their lyrics. Everyone can relate to them, not just in the UK but over across in America as well. Chris has got a great voice that really stands out, it's completely unique. Then they have respect for their fans, which is why they won't put out anything just for the sake of releasing anything. And also there's their global appeal.
Well, first of all we thought, right, let's be in a band, then we thought, right, let's get a record deal, then we thought, right, let's be like Bon Jovi or something, the biggest band in the world. And we've done 1 and 2, and so we're still working on the third aim.
Becoming Bon Jovi.
Well,
not
you know.
literally. But no, just to make great records.
They are so successful because essentially they're such a good band, and that's the reason. I don't think it's to do promotion. I don't think it's to do with them being good looking or people wanting to be with them like you get with many male bands. It's about them being good and being talented and just being completely sincere and honest in the fact that they're doing this because they're passionate about it.
At the end of last year we went to LA and Scotland and London in the space of about 3 days, and we were flying first class everywhere. And we were like playing a sold out gig here, and then we were speaking to Sylvester Stallone here, you know. And I just thought, and then sometimes I just get swollen with pride because I think, yeah, well, you know, 3 years ago me and him were sat in a bedroom going, right, this is good, isn't it? I bet the bloke next door likes this. And now we're kind of talking to primetime newsreaders, you know what I mean? So it's wicked.
Coldplay is such a good band because they've got this raw energy to them, you know, and that's quite rare. You know, when you listen to them, you're really absorbing everything about them.
But you wanted to get the record deal when you started the band?
Yeah, well, soon after, yeah.
I think all bands do.
They've come from very grassroots kind of territory. They've all formed when they're at college, and they all got together like that in the pursuit of just making really good music, and they've sort of stuck to their goals, I think, and they've just kept their own distinctive sound, and they're just sort of doing what they want to do, and what they do is really, really good.
Yet England has been known to bestow the royal treatment on its homegrown celebrities at a young age. The Beatles, Rolling Stones, Stone Roses, Blur, Oasis, and Suede were barely shaving when they scaled the charts and had their images splashed on the front page.
Just kind of a bit much, you know? I mean, it's fair enough to be interested in people, but if you're interested in them to the point that, like, they can't go anywhere. Like I have to have my... Because I open my curtains, there's like 6 lenses pointed at your window the whole time.
Following in those footsteps, Coldplay's debut album entered the UK chart at #1, which is pretty impressive. given the fact that not only is the quartet noticeably devoid of fashion statements and rock and roll egos, but they had only released a few singles previously. Fame and fortune are now theirs, but it wasn't always this way. The members of Coldplay come from all over the UK. Guitarist John Buckland comes from Wales. Drummer Will Champion is from Southampton. Bass player Guy Berryman grew up in Scotland. But to get a real insight into the inspiration behind Coldplay, you need to know how singer Chris Martin spent his early years. Growing up in Exeter, a small town in southwest Britain, Chris Martin caught the singing bug as a child after hearing Freddie Mercury on his radio. When he was 13, his parents bought him his first guitar while on vacation in Venice, and it wasn't long before he started to write his own songs.
I think one of the main reasons that Coldplay sort of made it out of the mainstream and made it out of the pop world and also broke America was because of the uniqueness of Chris Martin's voice. He's almost, I want to say that he's got like an old school style of singing in that he's not sort of trying to mimic any type or genre or other band's sort of way of singing. He's very individual, he's quite poetic in the way he sings. He like holds the note and really like sort of reinforces it and really means what he's singing.
When you become famous or whatever, you realise it's nonsense, you know. Everyone's just a normal person. Everyone, even the Pope, you know. Well, he's a great person, but everyone is essentially made of the same things. And if you start thinking you're more important or better than someone, then you just become an idiot, I think. And I have days when I act like an idiot and nobody likes me. So that's how you keep your feet on the ground.
Well, the first thing that stands out is that he's got such a wide range, vocal range. He can hit the very high notes and the low notes, whereas a lot of his contemporary singers at the moment, like Damon Albarn from Blur and Liam Gallagher from Oasis, they're very monotone, they haven't got that range. Whereas he will use his voice as a musical instrument, they don't really add anything extra to the music.
I think Chris Martin's voice is very integral to their sound. He's got a great range as well, so he can express so many different parts of what he's trying to portray.
I just went on a trip to Haiti, which is why I wear these t-shirts about trade. And I don't know, man. When you're a school child and you're doing geography and you read about all the terrible things in the world, you know, deforestation and chemical plants and, you know, oil drills everywhere, you don't really think about it. And that when you go somewhere where it's been completely destroyed by industry and corruption.
Coldplay's music itself is very good, but Chris Martin's voice, you know, really stands it up against, you know, the masses. It's really, and with the lyrics, compounded with the lyrics, it just becomes so full, you know, it really makes people feel what he's saying.
The eldest child of an accountant and teacher, Chris formed his first band at elementary school before going to Sherborne private school. Here he met his future manager, Phil Harvey, at the age of 14. Together, they shared a passion for music and a love of the band U2. At Sherborne, Chris's interest in music grew. He was in a couple of school bands, Identity Crisis, the sort of teen Pet Shop Boys, and the Rockin' Honkies, which covered standards like Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay and Mustang Sally. He also developed a love for playing the piano, but like every keyboard player, he desperately wanted to be the front man. To pursue a career in music, Chris realized that he would have to move to London. So in 1996, he enrolled at University College London and studied history. That's where he met future band members Will, John, and Guy.
Most of our friends keep us
grounded. Same mates, the same mates you've always had.
yeah. Sting and Bono.
I don't think it's at all uncommon for bands to originate at school because, like, America and Great Britain are like, this happens all the time, because I think, especially in university, because for the first time you're completely surrounded by people that are like-minded, they're searching for similar things, you know, you've got other talented musicians around you, but yet you're completely secure in the face in the sense that you're on campus or whatever, you've got some sort of support from family, but yet you're out on your own for the first time.
The four of them were all housed in the same building. Although they were studying very different subjects, they all shared a passion for music. And London gave them the perfect playing ground to see what other bands were out there. Whenever possible, they were going to gigs.
I can understand why Chris Martin went to London to form a band, because publishing companies are there, record companies are there, all the big bands play there. That's, you know, if you want to see any band that you like, it's always better to go up and see them in London, because 9 times out of 10 they'll always be on tour, they will always go through there, so it's always a good idea to go up there. Plus the fact you've got people living there who want to be in bands and want to make it big.
London's like this perfect setting for the music industry to really, you know, explode, because you've got such a diversity, you know, diversity of culture. It's like the cultural centre for the world, you know, there's so much going on. If you want to go to a reggae gig, you go to a reggae gig. If you want to go to like a guitar-based gig, you go to that. You know, you can go to whatever kind of music you want to go to.
London's a great place for music. It's probably the capital city of music. No matter what style that you're into, be it punk, goth, indie, rock, there's always clubs and places to play. There's loads of little venues like the Marquee, the Astoria, the Borderline, and also lots of pubs have nights with bands playing. And it's at these where you can meet people who are often into forming bands as well.
When they were not studying or going to watch bands, Guy and John would hang out at Chris's room, and together they would write songs. A lot of the material that would end up on the band's first album came together here. They wrote hundreds of songs before finally picking the tracks, which would become worldwide hits.
Just sitting down with a group of people, like if you're intending to go out and like join a band and have a successful career within that band, I mean, starting from a point where you just sort of sit down and have a jam with someone, I mean, I think it's more than important, it's vital, which is why so many bands are successful that come out of university, because they've had the opportunity and the time to just sit down together, relax, have a smoke, you know, and just sit and jam and just pick each other's brains. And I think when you do that and you get yourself in that sort of situation, the more you just sort of work with it, it just evolves.
Jamming with others is important when writing good songs, because you know you go off into different avenues and you're kind of musically unbound. There's 4 different, you know, attitudes and thoughts and lyrics and everything coming together rather than just one. You know, it's like with Chris Martin, and he was just, you know, like my music only, and then he joined with Coldplay, and it was all of them, you know, in together. And now he says, you know, he couldn't work alone anymore. He needs those influence.
After a couple of years of jamming together, Chris decided that they should form a band. Before the single gig was played, the guys decided to cut a demo. However, there was one problem. They had no drummer. Will Champion, who also used to jam on guitar with John, suggested that his flatmate should be their drummer. But come the day of rehearsal, he didn't turn up. Will, who had never played drums before, filled in and became the band's drummer.
You always have dreams about what you want to be when you're young. And they should probably change every day, but I think from when we all started playing music, it was because we all started very young, playing our instruments and whatever. I think that was definitely a drive that sort of saw us through all the little fashions about wanting to be this and that, but I think all the way through we all wanted to do it.
I think college is a great place to start a band. I think there are a number of reasons for this, one of which is you meet lots of new people, all from different backgrounds and who are influenced by different styles of music. Another is just the time factor, is that you have a lot of free time on your hands, so you have time to get together and jam and write songs with people. And also the student union is often the first place that bands will play, and also in the local pubs.
Coldplay all met at university. They all, it was the four of them living together, and they'd all come from different parts of the country. It's like perfect, you know, to get a drummer and a singer and a guitarist and a bass player all in one house, and they all, you know, formed a band and took off. And it happens a lot at college, you know, people go, oh, I'll sack off lectures and I'll just play, and they just jam, you know, all day.
Despite the fact that Will had never played drums before, the group started to practice hard and went under the name of Starfish. They started to develop their sound at a feverish pace. Chris would come up with the start of a song, John and Guy would add the rhythm section, and Will would then give the whole thing his final polish. To this day, the group still works this way, with all their royalties getting split equally among the four of them. Chris had witnessed too many of his favorite bands destroy themselves about songwriting credits. He had no intention of letting Coldplay fall apart over money.
I think it's a really commendable thing that they've done to split the royalties 4 ways, because I can see where some singer-songwriters might sort of get the idea that because they wrote the song, it's therefore, you know, that they should get the full royalties. But I mean, in a way, it's just, you know, it's just damning the band straight away, because you're therefore saying that the rest of the band is less important than you.
Still under the name of Starfish, the group played their first gig at the now-closed London Camden pub, the Laurel Tree. But it was due to a gig mix-up a few months later that the band finally found a manager and financial backer. Chris had not forgotten his old school friend, Phil Harvey, and the two had kept in touch, with Phil regularly coming up to London to visit and see the band.
Well, I first saw them back in '99 at the Tunbridge Wells Forum, and then they didn't have the piano. There was the 3 guys at the front just playing guitar, and of course the drummer at the back. And even then, you could tell there was something special. At the time they were just supporting a band called Bellatrix, but they were the ones who really stood out. And then recently I saw them live, and they did Clocks, and it was absolutely amazing. You could tell that they'd really come on in confidence after they'd toured all around the world and developed their stage show, and it's certainly one not to be missed.
It's the first time we really wanted to have a big uplifting song with lots of strings and, you know, lots of triumph, you know. But it was the most difficult song to record in the world. Nothing in it really works together, and it took us probably 200 hours to record it.
The last time I saw Coldplay perform live will always stick out in my mind, because I mean the whole set was amazing, and it just had this real atmosphere of it. It was building up to something impressive, and the gig had a real sort of element of a climax to it. And they finished off by playing Clocks, and as it sort of started, they started it very sort of slow and in keeping with the original track. But as it got going, the momentum just picked up so much, and Chris was on the piano, and just the pure passion in the way he was playing it, to to the point they went into a huge instrumental section, and he was just hammering at this piano like nothing else mattered, like no one else was there. And to just see him just so involved with what he was playing to you was just, you know, really amazing. And everyone there was just completely mesmerised by it. What can people expect from your show tomorrow?
Oh God, I don't know.
People are coming from very far away, that's all.
Really, really?
Bottom of Dunedin, top
Really?
of Dunedin,
I've been in Dunedin. It's a great place, you know. I don't know, hopefully they can expect us to be relaxed and good, because we just finished this filming of this DVD, so we're all kind of enjoying ourselves at the moment, you know.
Glad to be back in New Zealand?
Yeah, very much so. I love it here, you know. It was only about 3 months ago I sat on there listening to a band called The Music.
The band wanted to do a gig at Dingwalls in Camden and had arranged it so that they'd be headlining with a couple of friends' bands. Then, about 2 weeks before the gig, the promoter told the group that there were now 8 bands playing and that they were only going to be 5th on the bill. Not only that, but they weren't getting paid. It was at this point that the band asked Phil if he would be their manager. He agreed, phoned the promoter up to say that they were not going to play, and then hired the venue out the next night with his own money. The guys made all their money back, with enough left over to do some studio recording. Phil was now the band's manager.
Before we went on stage, we thought no one was coming, you know, and we walked out and it was really like a dream, you know.
Phil Harvey is Coldplay's manager, and he is like an old friend of Chris's, you know, which is important because, you know, they feel like they can trust him, and that's important, to have a manager who you can trust and somebody who's not going to screw you over, you know. It also takes all the business out of it for you, so you've just got to concentrate on the music and, you know, the performance, and you don't have to worry about the gigs and speaking to the suits in the offices, you know, and booking all your gigs. You've got someone doing that for you, so you're just single-minded and, you know, doing your thing, doing your music.
Coldplay's manager Phil Harvey is like considered a 5th member of the band, because it's so important to have a manager, because they keep you focused, they bring you all together. If you get despondent about things, it's like your manager is there to just like, look, no, we're doing this, we've got a gig here, we're going to play there, this person's going to produce your album and stuff like that. And they just look after you and just keep you all together and keep you sane.
I think having a manager is very important. I mean, basically their job is to make your life easier. For example, if you're going on tour, they're going to organise where you're going to stay, where you're going to play, how you're going to get there, and also transporting all your instruments and everything. And they're also the person who will deal with the record company, so they'll sort out contracts, they'll work out how much you're going to get paid, and they'll make sure that you're not going to get screwed.
As the gigs went on, the group decided that the name Starfish just didn't seem right. It was one of Chris's flatmates who suggested Coldplay. He had used it for his own band, but felt it wasn't suitable. Chris loved it, and Coldplay was born. With the group now playing regular gigs all over the UK, they wanted to put out their first single. Being poor students, this was an expensive prospect. Their band's manager, Phil Harvey, decided to fund the release himself and gave the group the go-ahead to record 3 tracks at a studio called Sink City in Tottenham, just outside of London.
I usually find when a band comes in and they say they want to do 5 songs in a day, I say to them, well, I usually reckon, depending on the band, obviously, a song a day to get it recorded properly with a decent vocal take and everything, and mixed. If you come in for a day, that's a push, getting 1 song done in that day. If you want to do 5 songs, I would say take 5 days over that, and that you can get the 5 songs actually recorded in the say 3 days, and then you've got 2 days to mix them.
Before you go into the studio, you have to practice your songs and know them parrot fashion, and that takes quite a long time. But before you go into the studio, everybody will know their stuff, And you try and narrow down as many takes as possible. You try and narrow down the amount of days that you need, because it's just far too expensive really to spend more than, you know, 1 or 2 weeks or something.
This was the strictly limited safety CD, and only 500 copies were pressed. Most went to record companies, but a few managed to get bought by the band's growing fan base. They can now change hands for almost $300.
I think the process of getting a CD made for bands these days is much more accessible, because I mean, on a basic level, if they maybe were playing a gig that they'd set up sort of unsigned, with programs such as Cubase and Logic and CD burners becoming cheaper and more readily available, they could quite easily, you know, for under £100 with the software and the blank CDs included, like make up like 150 CDs to bring along to their gig and give out or sell or whatever.
Nowadays, if I went into the studio, did some demos and stuff, press up CDs at the end of the day, take them home, copy them, and then we could sell them at gigs or whatever, or send them out to venues or whatever, and it's a much more professional sort of product you can come up with very easily nowadays.
For the rest of 1998, the band played a string of gigs in the hope of finding a record deal. The group's lucky break came when they played the Camden Falcon in London. Although there were only about 150 people there that night, one of them was Simon Williams, owner of Fierce Panda Records. He thought the band would be great for his label, and after the show, he approached the group about releasing a single. This became the band's first proper release, the Brothers and Sisters single. It was released in April 1999 and was limited again to 2,500 copies. It was enough for the band to start to be recognized nationally, and soon they were getting airplay on BBC's Radio 1, one of the UK's leading radio stations. Just as the Brothers and Sisters single was starting to make waves on national radio, the band's first release, Safety, arrived on Dan Keeling's desk. He was an A&R man at Parlophone, and initially, the omens weren't great. He had seen the band a few months before at an industry showcase at Cairo Jack's, an Egyptian-themed pub in central London.
Our band did a showcase at Cairo Jack's. I think it's called Digress now, but it was supposed to be an industry showcase. There's record company people going to be there. We were all psyched up for it. We had mates coming up in a minibus. And it's the same place as Coldplay did their industry showcase. And we were very psyched up for this place. Right, gonna get a sign from this or whatever. And it was just a bit of a crummy gig though, really.
A friend of mine did a gig at Cairo Jack's probably 4 years ago, and they thought it was a bit of a scam, you know, that they were having to bring all the numbers to fill the place, and they thought there'd be loads of, you know, representatives from music companies in the building, you know, watching scouts, talent scouts and everything. But actually, I don't know whether there were any there. It seemed to be just them and their friends. Incidentally, Coldplay played a couple of weeks later, and that's where they were spotted. So I suppose it does happen.
The gig hadn't impressed him, but on listening to the tracks on Safety, he had a change of mind. The track No More Keeping My Feet on the Ground blew him away. He immediately set up a meeting with Coldplay's manager, Phil Harvey, and signed the band to a record deal. The band's first release for Parlophone, The Blue Room, almost destroyed the band. Chris was now starting to feel the pressure of being more professional. He started to take his anger out on the rest of the band, with drummer Will getting the full force of it. In reaction, Will walked out.
I don't think you'll hear of a band who hasn't had an argument in their history. Chris Martin had a lot of you know, he had a big argument, massive argument with his drummer over something really petty and ridiculous in the you know, in their early material, and then he kind of apologised to him, you know, because you kind of want everything to be exactly right.
I find when a band comes in with a clear idea about what they want to sound like at the end of their session, if they can tell me in terms that I recognise as regards what they're saying, you know, basically if we lock in and get the same mindset, it can be really, really easy to do what they want. If I don't know what they're talking about, if they're referring to bands I've never heard, if they're not, you know, explaining in terms that I identify with or whatever, it can become very confusing, and as a result, towards the end of the session, the pressure starts mounting because they're not getting what they want.
Chris was devastated, and after a week apologized to Will. Even so, he felt so bad he went out and got drunk at bass player Guy's flat, which ended with Chris hovering over the toilet. He's been sober ever since.
I think that's quite dangerous, especially with the lives we have. You know, once you stop thinking that what's happening to you is weird, I think you start becoming
an idiot.
With the band back in action, the Blue Room single was finished on time, with 5,000 copies being printed. It would even bring more recognition for the group, who went on to play Glastonbury Music Festival and a co-headlining tour around the UK with Swedish rockers Bellatrix. This included a night at the Forum in Tunbridge Wells, Kent.
The first time I ever saw Coldplay was at the Forum in Tunbridge Wells, when they were supporting Bellatrix. I went with a mate, and just waiting for the headlining band to come on, really. We were watching them. I remember them playing Shiver, and that, I think it was like one of the last tracks, and that, I thought, sort of stuck out to me. From that gig, I never expected them to be as big as they are now.
The Shiver single quickly followed in 2000, with even more support from Radio 1 and MTV. Coldplay were now getting a reputation as the new face of British rock. They went on tour again, supporting Muse, and then finally got their own tour. The story could have ended there, but Coldplay were about to release a single that would change everything. The band's next single, Yellow, was released on the 26th of June, 2000. After gaining huge amounts of airplay on both radio and TV, it entered the UK charts at number 4, giving Coldplay their highest chart position so far, and a chance to appear on the UK's Top of the Pops. This was then followed by another appearance at Glastonbury, this time on the main stage.
It's great though, because now we've probably got maybe 6 gigs left in total of this year, you know,
out of 140.
So we can really enjoy every single one.
Yeah. So you're up to about 134 or something out of 140. It must have seemed like a long stretch for a while, yeah.
We know how to play Yellow. We were struggling for the first 80.
First heard Yellow on BBC's Radio 1. It was on the Joe Wiley show. She was had just discovered a demo of them, was really pushing it. And what really stood out was Chris's voice. He's got such a great range, from sort of really high to really low. Great lyrics as well. You can see that when they wrote the song, it was really from the heart. That immediately you wanted to hear it again. And then when I saw the video on the telly, just him on his own on the beach, it was brilliant.
The track Yellow was just this complete phenomenon. You know, it was so beautiful. It made you feel like, even if you weren't in love, that perhaps you were in love, you know, it gave you that emotion. So really, really emotive.
Yellow was a really good song because it's just a nice ballady one. It's just got a good vocal to it. It's quite a difficult vocal actually. It's really high notes in some of it. And the video's cool as well. It just seemed to be one continuous shot on a beach. I mean, a lot of other bands tend to go through all the works and could have been really dreamy and just really sort of kind of fake and kind of whatever, but it's just quite simple and it just sort of put the message across quite well.
Yellow then began to snowball with success all around the world. The song had given the band instant celebrity status. It wasn't something that they believed they deserved. Chris Martin still felt like a student, not an international rock star. The band was now getting everything it ever wanted, and the guys were in a state of shock that anyone actually liked their music. With the success of Yellow, Coldplay was eager to get their first album out. Parachutes, which had been a long time in development, was now nearing completion. It was another team effort, but this time they had help from a talented engineer, Ken Nelson. Unlike other engineers the band had worked with, he knew how to nurture the band's unique sound.
If you let the band record themselves and mix themselves and everything, you wouldn't have anything you wanted to hear at the end of it. You have to have a neutral man there who knows what he's doing on the desk, sound-wise, to referee the whole thing, really. If a band is self-producing, the engineer has got to be able to say to them, no, that will not work, and this is why.
It's very important to have a good sound engineer because you're putting your whole sound, your whole ideal into their hands. And their levels, they're setting the level for your guitar, they're setting the level for your voice, they're choosing the microphones and all that kind of stuff. And it's very much in their head, in their hands, how you're going to sound like. So you've got to have a lot of faith and a lot of trust in your sound engineer.
He gave the band an outside perspective of their music, and in the process became a surrogate fifth member of the band. The band began to trust him, and he brought a discipline and a voice of reason to the record.
There's not as many as Shania Twain, but it is good. For a band like us, it is great, and we have it. I mean, it is crazy.
The album's fresh sound had a lot to do with Coldplay's influences and the high standards that they set for themselves. The majority of the basic tracks were all done live together in an effort not to sound like machines. The band wanted to create a groove that would show its human side. When Parachutes was finally released in the UK, it met with high critical acclaim. It entered the charts at #1 and has sold over 5 million copies to date. It went on to get the nomination for the UK's prestigious Mercury Music Prize. Culturally conquering America is a Britpop tradition that just won't fade away anytime soon. As dramatic things around Parachutes were happening in the UK, Yellow had started to break big in America. The album Parachutes quickly followed. An American tour was organized, and the band flew out to conquer the States.
The task of breaking America has a huge stigma over it within the English music industry, because it's the one thing that they all want to break America. They all want to be successful in America. And I think it's difficult for English bands, one, because it is such a huge country for one, and for two, they already have such a diversity over there that you really need to be something new. You need to be something unique. You need to be something that's good enough for them to want to bother with you.
I think that what the British is exporting to America, what they're importing rather, like Travis and Coldplay, and to a certain extent Radiohead, but they've been there for the last 10 years anyway. But I think certainly Travis and Coldplay, they're the antithesis to the sort of new metal stuff that is prevalent in America. And there's new metal come, you know, the Marilyn Manson stuff, all this sort of aggressive guitar stuff. This is the antithesis to it.
I was really surprised when Coldplay cracked America, because they started off being a bit of a flash in the pan. I mean, they were good, but you thought, well, you know, they might last 1, 2 albums or something and then perhaps disappear. But when they started getting airplay in America and things started to sort of progress and get a lot better for them, it was just like, wow.
The boys were automatically impressed by the sheer size of New York. The band found it very intimidating at first, but quickly warmed up to the vibe of one of the most exciting cities on earth. When they weren't working, their spare time was taken up visiting cool clubs and endless record shops. They even appeared on Saturday Night Live, David Letterman, and Conan O'Brien.
Maybe because we're terrifically handsome. I don't know. With a boy band, it's okay to like, you know?
The tour was not without its ups and downs. A few badly chosen support slots with other bands, such as Blink-182 and Staind, almost finished the group. It all climaxed when a hardcore metal audience started throwing bottles.
It was wet and cold and miserable.
The experience toughened up the band. Chris Martin, in particular, finally stopped worrying about what other people thought. A take-it-or-leave-it mentality started to develop in him, and he was now not going to be afraid of anyone.
If you're supporting the wrong kind of band, which I think Coldplay did with Staind, the audience just wants to see that band and they only want to hear that kind of music. And some people, a lot of audiences can be very narrow-minded where it comes to that sort of thing. So yeah, you can face bottles and just verbal abuse, and it can be very, very difficult if you're in that sort of situation.
I don't know, we've travelled a lot and we've been to a lot of places that we'd never heard of sometimes. And, it's fucked.
In 2001, the band started to work on new material, much of it previewed on the American tour, before it was finally finished in April 2002 and given the name A Rush of Blood to the Head.
They went down okay, you know, and they were all moving in the right direction that we wanted to move. But certain ones went down better than others, and so those were the ones we kept. You know, we recorded the others, but they were not very good. But they were pushing in the right direction, and so we could see that people maybe liked that direction, but we could have better songs. So it was very important to play them live, very important.
Its creation did not come easy, with the band dumping much of the material originally planned. To get some focus, they relocated to a small rehearsal room in Liverpool, where they had recorded much of Parachutes. The band found the environment liberating, with little of their celebrity status following them around. They could finally just get on and write the music.
It's vital to have a good second album because you want to show that you're not a one-hit wonder. You want to show that your first album wasn't a fluke, and you know, you want to show that you have more material. You know, the first album you could have spent a lifetime making, you know, but you can't do that with your second album. And I think Coldplay managed that quite successfully. Not only were they were very critical and very careful in the fact that they were not going to just hit out another album because the fans were buying, you know, they were baying for this album and they wanted it. They weren't going to just let it go out in order to get the money, because of course everyone would have bought it. But if it had been crap, then that would have been the end of Coldplay. No one's gonna care about you because you've lulled them into this sense of, you know, good music with the first one, and then, you know, fobbed them off with some Rush drivel for the second one.
I mean, we're going to hide away for a while, you know. Things have become a little weird in some respects, so we want to kind of... It's funny, the time we really feel like free and totally unfazed at the moment is when we're on stage, and it's everything else that's kind of freaky. But when we're playing a concert these days, it's really amazing. I really hope we're good tonight.
The band's second album can be the make or break of their career. I mean, the first album will normally be an amalgamation of songs that have been written over a number of years, and the band will also be very enthusiastic and they'll be behind it 110%, be touring and doing TV and radio. Whereas the second album, there'll be more pressure from the record company to do it. In some bands' case, they're not as enthusiastic about the second album as they were the first, because they feel, well, we've already made it, we don't have to work quite as hard. And also there's pressure on the record company to get it out quickly, so the standard of songs may not be quite as good as they were in the first one.
The album was released in August to critical acclaim and was to be preceded by the single In My Place on August 5th. The Scientists followed as the next single, and Coldplay secured their place as one of the best bands in the world, winning numerous awards, including Album of the Year at the Q Awards 2002. Even Coldplay would admit that its rise to fame has been a whirlwind, with frontman Chris dating the Oscar-winning but tearful actress Gwyneth Paltrow.
I can't even talk. I won't ever answer any question about my personal life. I'm sorry, even though I like you very much.
The four students from London have conquered the world. Their music has found popular support all around the globe, with armies of fans desperate to buy their albums and to see the band perform.
In the future, Coldplay, if they can maintain, you know, their kind of choosiness, their pickiness about their music, you know, because they write hundreds of songs and then maybe pick 8 or 10 or 12, you know, put it out there. If they can keep going with that, then they'll be always successful, eternally successful, and the fans will appreciate that as well.
I was in a shop the other day and I was talking about our band with someone, and they were going, "Yeah, do you like that band?" And I was going, "Yeah, they're all right." You know.
And did you tell them you were in it?
No, I said I was in another band. I was just messing around.
I think in the future for Coldplay, although I think maybe their next album or even two will be enjoying and embracing the fact that they have cracked America and they are a global band now, and you know they're going to want to push on that for a while, and I think their music for the next album or so will reflect that. It will be kind of similar to Rush Blood to the Head and Parachutes. But I think after that, I think they're the sort of band that's just not going to satisfy them, because ultimately I think their music's so passionate that the money and the recognition and the celebrity status that they may well be sort of gathering at the moment, it just won't be enough for them. And I think maybe after that they'll probably have a break, and then they'll come out with a whole new way of looking on their music and really trying to push to get critical appreciation from maybe people that are into alternative music and have real respect for music, and people from the industry itself, rather than album sales and chart sales. I don't think that will bother them as much. I think they'll want to get more to the sort of platform that bands such as Radiohead are on, in the fact that, yeah, maybe they might not be hitting #1 at Top of the Pops, but people buy all their albums because it's good music.
Coldplay wants to sing songs for the world, and in the process, make a difference in people's lives. As the band prepares for what the future can throw at them, you can't help but wondering, where does it all go from here?
In the future, I can see a great progression of their musical style, because the early beginnings from all those EPs through to Parachutes, which was a good album, and Parachutes was such a good album to try and top, and I think they did with Rush of Blood. They kept it on the same level, experimented with other things, but I'm just really looking forward to another album.
I think as long as they stick to the high standards that they keep at the moment and don't fall to the pressure that record companies put on them just to churn out any old rubbish just so they can release it under the Coldplay name, then I think that they'll have a long and very successful career.
Are you having a good life?
Yeah, I am today, yeah. When I'm in New Zealand, I couldn't be happier, you know. I've got clothes on my back, food in my belly.